Open your cerebral cortex and shift your lobes into upper beta phase, because you are going to have Bitcoin knowledge transmitted directly into your vestibulocochlear. Your host of Bitcoin Knowledge is Trace Mayer, an early Bitcoin advocate since it cost $0.25, but this is not intended to be investment advice. A doctor of jurisprudence, but this is definitely not legal advice. And an investor in core cryptocurrency infrastructure, including Armory, BitPay, Kraken, and Nitagio, but this is not a recommendation of those services. Here, you get fed via direct mind download with pure and free Bitcoin knowledge.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast. We have just a really important interview today. We have Eric Lombrozo. He's the CEO of Ciphrex, developer of the M-Signal wallet. For those that want to get to know him, we actually did an interview about that about a year ago. Anyways, I have Eric back today because he's been doing a lot of work on this segregated witness, and has some very important news to share with everybody. So, Eric, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Trace.
Yeah, so segregated witness, in my opinion, this is one of the most important things that we can do for Bitcoin. It's one of the reasons I think that Peter Woolley is our MVP for 2015. He came up BIP 66, LibSac 256, and then also segregated witness. So maybe you can help us.
I saw you write that about him, and I think it's pretty well deserved. He's done a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, he's been absolutely phenomenal. So what I'd like you to help us understand, what is segregated witness? Why is it so important? And what is this big news that needs to get out and about?
Okay, so Bitcoin has this as this basic structure, the transaction, but the transaction actually consists of a lot of different parts, which can be validated separately rather than having to validate everything together. Which means that you can improve a lot of things about the system, particularly, with scalability and extensibility. You can add more commitment structures, and you can make it so you can add more features to the system without burdening, the system as it exists right now, and being fully backwards compatible, which is something that's been amazing because, up until recently, we really didn't have good ways of deploying backwards compatible stuff. We had soft forks. But most of these soft forks, were very limited in scope. They could only change so much because, if you change more than that, then you really risk breaking older clients. And then if you get into hard forks, you can even have consensus failures. So with this, we actually have a new mechanism where we can commit to new structures into the blockchain, which are separate from the transactions themselves, which can be any kind of other data. Which can be used to validate the blocks, or which can be used to, merge mine or do a whole bunch of other really cool stuff. You can add other kinds of fields to transaction data, which allows you to extend the protocol in very interesting ways. And the nice thing about it is that it's fully backwards compatible. Anything that we extend into the structure, older nodes will just simply ignore it, but they can still validate everything that is theirs, and they won't have a problem with that. So this is actually a pretty big breakthrough. And I think that, it's kind of some people have been saying, and I agree, that it's probably the biggest improvement to Bitcoin ever since it was invented.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a huge deal. Like you and I, we've kind of rubbed shoulders, since at least 2011 in San Diego. And then Dr. Back, I was having dinner with him in December 2013, and I remember a comment he made. He said, the actual extensibility of Bitcoin has kind of gotten very slow because we don't want to risk the $6 billion market cap. And that's when he presented to me his idea of sidechains. And it was before he could even figure out the two-way peg, but he kind of gave the assertion that, this would be the way that we could roll out new versions of the software, like new development, new features. But you're saying that this SegWit actually is going to let us do it with the main production Bitcoin, because we're able to do it in this backwards compatible way.
That's our hope. I mean, let's not I think that there's still a place for sidechains. We definitely don't want to be experimenting too much on the main network with stuff that's very experimental still, that we still haven't really fully tested. So, sidechains could potentially serve a purpose there. But the nice thing about SegWit is that it does give us a deployment mechanism which gives us a much larger margin of error. And a much larger deployment time frame. So it's not like everyone needs to upgrade before a certain particular deadline. Stuff can be rolled out gradually, little by little, and people can kind of adopt it as they see fit. And as things get more and more universally adopted, then more nodes are going to support the new features. But it's not like it doesn't cause like this kind of abrupt change where with side chains you might come up with a really cool idea on some side chain that you want to bring back to the main network. But now, it's going to be really hard to deploy it because you maybe have implemented in a way that's completely different or incompatible, or it's really, it's a lot of the source code, in these kinds of side chains might diverge significantly from the original chain. With this kind of stuff, we're talking about the commitment structure itself being extensible, which means that it's kind of independent of the implementation itself. This is something which is more the way that the data is structured, which we can extend, and anyone that follows the particular design of that of the way that we extend this, their software will automatically also be updated. So this is something that's really exciting because it also provides a much better mechanism for deploying this stuff that doesn't require like rewriting everything from scratch, like a lot of the stuff that has been proposed in the past. But at the same time, it does allow us to roll out really a lot like very powerful features. So it gives us much more room to play with things that we can actually do that before were just simply too difficult.
Yeah, this is, I mean, it is such a huge breakthrough. Now, it's going to cause some people some extra work, right? I mean, one of the things that Adam Back had helped me understand is just the importance of economic consensus, and that economic consensus takes place with the wallets. And you're the developer of a major wallet, mSigna. If I were to actually like look at what are our best wallets out there, there's Armory and mSigna are kind of those two in that ultra secure camp. What type of extra work is this going to put onto the shoulders of our wallet developers and by extension exchanges, payment processors, etc.?
Well, it does require a little bit of retrofitting to support the new features. Of course, if you're like, for instance, if you have an SPV wallet, it's pretty much compatible out of the box. It'll work without any modifications. But if you want to have like a full node, a full validating wallet, then you're going to have to retrofit some stuff to be able to validate the new commitment structures, to check the witnesses and, check the signatures which have been pulled out of the transactions. But all in all, it's actually not that complicated. We're looking to put out a lot of documentation and, bring in a lot of wallet developers to, collaborate in developing this. And, even though we do have a working testnet right now, we're still looking for input for wallet developers and to see what kind of stuff might help them integrate better, and we want to make this as simple as possible. The nice thing is that it's not something that needs to be done by some particular deadline. Like I said before, this is something which can be rolled out gradually, and we don't need to put in all the features. I mean, we've already thought of a lot of really cool features we'd love to have in this, but we don't have to roll them all out at once. We can start with just like the simple minimal kind of stuff, and then gradually roll stuff out as we get more and more people to kind of see the value and how they're going to be able to offer more to their users from these new features. So this is something which I would like to I would like to invite all wallet developers that are interested to participate in this, and definitely we're open to to seeing how we can make this simpler.
Right, and then obviously, just like nobody really uses Netscape anymore, the wallets that don't really add those additional features, they'll just kind of fall out of relevance and usefulness for their people. One of the concerns that I've seen talked about quite a bit is the anyone can spend issue. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. Like, what is this anyone can spend issue, and does that pose like a threat to double spending or other stuff like that? Right.
So, in any kind of soft fork that involves this kind of stuff, and this has been done before. For instance, the P2SH multisig, a BIP16, which was what enabled multisig transactions. When that was deployed, that also used an anyone can spend, mechanism whereby transactions that used to be anyone can spend, basically anyone, you didn't need to sign anything. Now you do need a signature, and now you actually need more than one signature in general. You have multisig. But this was done successfully, and it's been I think that it's been pretty clear that it can be done securely. It can be rolled out very securely. I think a lot of people might be concerned about that. Older clients are not going to be able to validate those transactions because to them, they just see, someone basically sending free money and someone else just using the free money. Of course, it's not free money because whoever used it actually had to sign for it. It's just that those signatures are going to be invisible to the old nodes. But if you look at any soft fork that we've done, that's always the case. We encourage people to upgrade if it is that miners, 95% of miners or more, like we're looking for a super majority that do indicate support for this. That would mean that they are going to be no longer accepting transactions that were anyone can spend transactions, that no longer anyone can spend transactions, which means that as long as the miners are actually following these rules, even with an SPV client, you can be pretty sure that you're not going to be seeing anyone can spend transactions that are spent without proper authorization on the blockchain. But I think that what needs to be mentioned is that any kind of new features that we add to Bitcoin can only really be carved out this way if we don't want to risk forking the blockchain, because this mechanism means that as long as a majority of miners is behind one particular blockchain, that blockchain is going to remain the dominant one. Whereas with a hard fork, you have a situation where you have a consensus failure, the blockchain splits, and there's no reconciliation. Basically, you have two different ledgers that started out the same, but now are completely different histories. And now, in the two ledgers, people have different amounts of money, and there's no way they can come back together. With this kind of a deployment, that cannot happen. That's simply impossible. So I think that especially with the developer community, we all feel pretty strongly that this is the safest way we have to deploy these kinds of features.
And that's the Bitcoin core development community, not necessarily like Bitcoin XT or like some of these other little branch off sects, right?
Yeah, of course.
So if we were to recap this, I've got maybe 2 minutes before my next conference call with one of my attorneys. And thanks so much for fitting this in. I know that it's been hard for us to find a way to actually make this work with our schedules. But if we were to recap this, like, what is the big news? You've actually rolled out this SegWit in testnet now?
Yes, we have a testnet for it. We're going to be going public with it very soon, inviting developers to come in and participate and, join the network and write apps on it and develop wallets and all that good stuff. We have a working system right now. It works. We've tested it. We're still trying to make sure that we haven't missed anything, any major gaping security holes or anything like that. We also want to, figure out what the scope of this is going to be. We don't want, as I said before, we don't want to release everything at once because it's too much. It's, we need to kind of, pace ourselves with this. And I think we need to figure out what it is that, needs to go into the first release. But I think for now, we pretty much have a functional testnet that pretty soon we're going to be opening up and let people play around with.
Well, this has been, this has just been tremendous. Thanks so much for all the work that you've done with this. I know that you've done a tremendous amount regarding this, and also Peter Woola, our MVP from last year, and then just the Bitcoin core team as a whole. I mean, I just wonder how many millions of dollars it's taken to write a lot of this code, just the code in 2015, and the extensibility with stuff like this. So thanks so much for doing that. Thanks so much for this big news about SegWit, and also being able to jump on the call with me so that we could get this recorded, and look to have you back later. So we've had Eric Lombrozo, CEO of Ciphrex and the developer of the MSigna wallet, talking about Segregated Witness. Thanks for being with us, Eric.
Thanks so much, Trace.
Be sure to get a copy of the free Bitcoin Guide at freebitcoinguide.com. Got a question or suggestion? Record your voice at bitcoin.kn. Don't be shy. To help the show, share bitcoin.kn with friends, post about it on Reddit, and otherwise spam the interwebs. Your iTunes comments and 5-star reviews are very important to us. Please continue tuning in to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast, where we release interviews with the top people in the Bitcoin world. Now take some choline and let that Bitcoin knowledge consolidate.